Okay, thank you. So what I want to show you today is the new commercial releases we have in preparation at Agilent Technologies. So the one is the ADF Export for OpenLab, and another one, the ADF Export Enterprise subscription. Heiko Fessenmeier, our system architect, will give a demo about the second part, the ADF Export Enterprise subscription, and I will lead you through this presentation. So what we are achieving with the ADF Export 1.3, we released these two products where the ADF Export Enterprise subscription brings in a third-party data conversion. So I will come to this later on in detail. We do apply the ADM LCUV data model update with both of these products. So the recommended candidate 2021-04 with it, and one of these, or the main aspect, is here the unification for raw data and peak details, for example, coming from minutes in the chromatogram to seconds now. Then we have the third-party data conversion to ADF via the OpenLab ECM. We have an OpenLab ECM integration. So this is our ECM is our enterprise content management system. And we support for the ADF export for OpenLab. So this is the first product of these two, the SFC now with the SFC recommended candidate 2021-4. So just a brief look over the engagement of Agilent we have with Allotrope. We started 2014 as a partner member, and our first commercial release with ADF Export 1.0 for OpenLab CDS ChemStation was in 2018. Now we are planning to have ADF Export 1.3 for release in October 2021, and this I will discuss or show you in detail what we introduced there. But first of all, I want to start with a vision for OpenLab, and this gives you also an overview where we are today and what we are planning in the future. So what you see is that we have here in the end three pillars. The ADF export, which is representing our client side, so typically where our CDS systems are living. So the OpenLab CDS is one of our systems at Agilent, but also the OpenLab CDS ChemStation. And these two are with these three products we had before are set up for generating, converting, or better to say, exporting ADF data coming from what a CDS system is writing as a raw data. What we now extend is that we also allow different vendors. We start, of course, with one to also write information or give their raw data into a conversion service we offer now for the ECM. And with this, we also entering the space of long-term storage, so archiving, which is one of our important schemes we want to fulfill here. And with this, when you are in ECM, you have additional capabilities. You can extract things at the moment, not that much, but we also looking into improving this. So have search capabilities and have the long-term storage capability. That's the most important part for the ECM. What we are seeking in the future for is the track to use the semantic data, which is in the ADF subcontainer, to bring this on a semantic layer. So typically a smart data lake where you can inject all these semantic data and where you can do a lot of queries over the whole content of the injection into the data lake. And also very important is a connection into the artificial intelligence. So this we also have seen on some slides today and on day one, that this is very important to get an easy track into artificial intelligence, which is doable over the ADF structure. So let's come to the ADF Export 1.3 with its two products now, starting in October. So you see here on the left upper side, you see the ADF Export for OpenLab client side. This we are also managing with this release with an update on the framework, but also adding SFC support. And the second part is here on the server side, the ADF Export Enterprise subscription, which is mainly driven by the ECM, but ECM has some additional modules. And one of these very important is the OpenLab ECM scheduler add-in, where you can get data from different systems incorporated into the ECM. And so if we have a third-party system, we can take the scheduler to fetch this information and transport this information from the third-party database into the ECM. And this typically shows up as an SSI zip file. With this, we go to an additional service we have generated, so the ADF export service. This is not living in the OpenLab ECM due to compliance reasons, and is doing the conversion or the export from the SSI zip into the ADF and re-injecting these ADF into ECM. From there, you can go for further use or for viewing capabilities if you have them or want to have them. So let me start to explain in more detail the ADF export for OpenLab. So this means this is the server side, the client side with the CDS as working horse. So what you see here, typically a CDS workflow. So you have the acquisition part. So there we also have seen this in the windows Heiko showed in his demo. So where you see or where you can bring in the flow, the gradient, all these things are defined here in the acquisition part of the software. When the run is then executed, typically you have all your information, all your data. This is then be analyzed in the data analysis part. Here you have, for example, yes, the integration parameter set and processing parts, processing method information about compounds and things like this. So what you need to get out of this acquisition data in the end results in, let's say, in concentration or amount of your substance you're looking for. And then you might also have some post-processing parts. So for reporting and exporting and things like this. And in this post-processing part, we typically plug in our ADF export system. So where we then can just push the button to make out of these results an ADF. And this is then generated in the way we know as HDF5 with subcontainers and archived for the OpenLab version. For the ADF export OpenLab, it's typically a folder, not the ECM. Of course, you can also put this in an ECM as an archive, or you can also let the scheduler, ECM scheduler, fetch and look into this folder and bring it to a destination in an archive. So if you look to the different modes we have for the OpenLab CDS workflows. There is the automatic export after acquisition. So as soon as you have done a run, and of course you have to do also the data analysis part, but this is hidden, you will have the data automatically exported and then given to this dedicated folder. Another mode is the automatic export after reprocessing in data analysis. So this means there is a halt in this process. You can, let's say, add in information. Perhaps you have to put some amount for calculation in, something like this. This can then be enriched and then reprocessed with this enhanced information, and then you will get your ADF out of this and transport it or send to this folder. If you look to the ChemStation workflows, these are a little bit different. So we have here the chance to go also over an export tool, the command line tool. So with this, you are not bound only to, let's say, the CDS ChemStation. So you can also have, let's say, old data, legacy data you would like to have converted to ADF. You can also direct to this, and in a batch file mode, you can go over this data and convert it to the ADF. And of course, we have a direct mode for the ChemStation as well. So as some of you might know, the ChemStation works typically via macros. And for this, we have a post sequence macro, which then takes the results of a sequence and sends it to ADF, to a single ADF, and also bring this into a dedicated folder, or you have a post-run macro where you have then a single run or different single runs also converted to ADF as single ADFs and transported them then to the dedicated folder. So what we are having new with the ADF export for OpenLab 1.3 is the implementation of the new rack we are doing, and also the Agilent SFC support. Coming to the ADF Export Enterprise subscription, so the second release we plan to achieve with ADF 1.3 in some weeks from now. So typically, I have grayed out the part of the client side to make it more clear. You see the ADF Export Enterprise subscription on the server side, and what we are now doing is that we here lift what we are doing with third party. It's an Empower system. We are allowing to get data imported into our OpenLab ECM over the ECM Empower scheduler add-in, and what ends up in the OpenLab ECM is an Empower SSI zip file. And this zip file is taken up then from our ADF service, export service. Here we are doing via the ADF core, so the framework 1.5.1, the newest one, this conversion into ADF and injecting from this service the ADF into ECM. So what we have achieved with this release in October is that we have a Water Empower ADF export for LCUV results data format, that we write the latest ADM LCUV results for Empower data, and that we have archiving capabilities with the Agilent ECM to ADF. And with this, I would like to hand over to Heiko for a demo of this process.
So I will take over. Yeah. So I won't show the overall process. I would like to show you the results that have been exported from the various processes. So I will show you then ADFs that have been exported from ChemStation. That means you see this here. This is an ADF exported from ChemStation, a single sample with the information from the sample about the hardware that has acquired the analysis information and the data processing results like the peak table. And then you can see here the chromatogram. And when I click on the chromatogram, I can export the spectra with this prototype ADF viewer. So that's nothing new. That's something you know from the versions before. What's new is we can also export SFC data. So that's one data result that has been exported from SFC. You can see here in the instrument list that back pressure module used with SFC is contained here, and this is SFC data. So that's new, and all of that is based on the new LTUV data model, which is using seconds behind the scenes. So these values have been calculated back to minutes for visualization, but the ADF in the background saves this chromatogram in seconds. So let me switch then to the new features that you probably are interested in. So I will show you data that has been acquired by Waters and Power with various hardware. So I will start with the data that has been acquired by client hardware. So you can see here, this is a sequence run with 6 runs. So you can see here the instrument that has used to acquire the data is an alliance with these modules. You can see here the peak table. So that means that is the original data that has been exported out of Waters and Power into an ADF. And then here's also the chromatogram available. I can also show you some data with 3D information. So that's this in a second. So you can see here, this is this shows the Waters, the UV, PDA, and data that has been acquired is so containing spectra information. And then you can see here that is an ADF, that spectrum that has been extracted out of the data cube. So that shows it's also feasible with spectra information. Let me show you then information from the acuity. So that's data that has been acquired by Empower using an acuity. You see here the acuity information. You can see also here there's a spectrum available. So that's something that shows how you can visualize or export acuity data. So let me maybe choose another one that shows some data from a UV detector. So this is a run with a sequence with 20 runs using that detector. So you can see all that is information that has been exported from Empower into the same ADF format that is also used for ChemStation and OpenLab CDS. So I have also prepared here a long sequence with 114 runs that have been exported from Empower. But that's also possible, shows another data. And let me go over to data that has been acquired by Empower using the Agilent LC information. Let me pick this one. So that shows the sequence with 3 runs. So here, this is the Agilent. So here you can see there's compared to the OpenLab CDS and ChemStation, there's currently the Agilent LC visualized as a monolithic instrument, since we don't get the detailed device information by now. But you can see here the most important information, like the peak table, and also there is the spectrum information available. And let me show you also the information that is using showing some data with the column. So we get the column of information if it's made available. So that's also feasible to visualize, and you can see there's this peak table, and so that's the same. And you can also import data from very old Agilent systems. So that means there are 2 generations of hardware drivers for the Agilent LC, and this is data that has been acquired quite a while ago using the older generation of hardware drivers. And even with these, we can convert the data from Empower into an ADF format, and then can visualize this in a data model. And so this is the last information I wanted to show. For sure, you can also visualize the OpenLab CDS information from an ADF in that module. So in summary, you can now export Waters Empower data, LC data into ADF, and then visualize this together with ChemStation and OpenLab CDS using the same format. That's all I wanted to show. Thank you.
Thank you, Heiko. So what we have when we look into the future, so we now have a comprehensive system around the archiving capabilities, but we are thinking of bringing more to this table. And here are some ads we could imagine for the ADF 1.4 in the future then. So one point is thinking of different techniques. So GC is very interesting for us and for our customers, but we also thinking of bringing up the MS, especially the MS single quad. This is requested by many customers, so we think of doing there a step forward with after this next release with the 1.4 release. We're also thinking of having then in the third party setting more than Waters Empower converted. So thinking of thermochromeleon, for example, but also others. This will be mainly driven by customers' requests. What I also showed in my vision slide in the beginning is that we of course can send out ADF information for reuse. The one thing of course is having smart data lake applications, but I think this is more up in the future. But what we can show short term is that we can re-inject ADF data into OpenLab CDS again and use this as a viewer, but also for reuse, which is the next block we are addressing, reuse and exchange of data, which makes completely sense to bring converted ADF data back to OpenLab systems, but also thinking of having a discussion about data viewer. So this is all open and is very important to have in the end to give a full story to the customers. So I think this is what I wanted to share today. Are there any questions to this we showed for October or beyond?
Thanks, Ralph. Thanks, Heiko.